This is the B-2 Spirit, the most expensive aircraft ever built, and the hardest one on Earth to find. Right now, radar operators across an entire ocean are staring at empty screens while one of these flies straight through them. For 30 years, it had exactly one job: cross the planet unseen and flatten targets that never move. But this past June, off the coast of Guam, one of them did something it was never designed to do. It reached out across more than 200 miles of open ocean and struck a ship it was never built to hunt. The weapon was the AGM-158C, the LRASM, a ship-killing missile with a mind of its own. The exercise was called Valiant Shield, and when the Air Force quietly admitted what had happened, then refused to explain how it worked, every admiral in the Pacific understood the message. The invisible bomber that hunts on land can now hunt at sea. That single shot rewired the math of a war nobody has fought yet. A war over the largest navy ever built in the most contested water on Earth. A $3 million missile fired from an aircraft no radar can see, aimed at a fleet of more than 300 ships. And here's the part that should keep them up at night. By the time a target sees it coming, it's already too late. It started 3 weeks ago in the sky over the Philippine Sea. Roughly 200 miles off the coast of Guam, a single B-2 is flying a track that, on every radar screen for 1,000 miles, simply isn't there. What you're looking at is 172 feet of wing, wider than the Statue of Liberty is tall, and yet to enemy radar, this thing shows up about the size of a marble. Inside sit 2 pilots. That's the entire crew for an aircraft so delicate it can't be left out in the rain, flying one of the most demanding missions in the world. Then the belly opens. Deep inside the bomb bay, a rotary launcher. Picture the cylinder of a revolver, scaled up to hold missiles instead of bullets. Rotates one weapon into position. It drops. For a heartbeat, it just falls, dead weight tumbling toward the ocean. Then a set of wings snaps out, a small jet engine lights, and the thing wakes up. This is the AGM-158C LRASM. And from this exact moment, no human is flying it. The pilots who released it are already banking away, turning for the long trip home. The missile settles down until it's skimming just above the wavetops, so low it's practically parting the spray. And it starts to hunt. Its target that day? The former USS Juno, a decommissioned American warship, 17,000 tons, stripped of her crew and anchored out here as a floating bullseye. For the next few minutes, the missile does the entire job by itself, dropping to the deck, weaving low across the swells, closing the distance at just under the speed of sound, with no one aboard to watch it come. It finds the hull, picks its spot, and slams home. One of several weapons that send the old ship to the bottom of the Pacific before sundown. Now, sinking a stripped-out target ship is not, by itself, headline news. Navies do it every year for practice. But 2 things about this one made intelligence officers from Beijing to Canberra pee their pants. First, the shooter. That missile didn't come off a ship or a submarine. It fell out of the belly of a stealth bomber, a plane that had never once publicly fired an anti-ship weapon in its entire career. Second, what the Air Force did next. Pacific Air Forces announced the shot as a surprise, offering exactly one carefully worded quote from a 4-star general, and then classified almost everything about how the missile and the bomber actually work together. That day, they rolled out a new kind of threat, and then pulled the curtain shut, which leaves the obvious question hanging in the air. Why does the United States suddenly need its rarest, most closely guarded airplane to start sinking ships? To answer that, you have to look at the wall China has spent 20 years building across the Pacific. For most of this last century, when America had a problem in the Pacific, the answer was simple. Send a carrier. 100,000 tons of sovereign American soil, 90 aircraft parked off your coastline is a very pointed suggestion. For decades, nobody could do a thing about it. China spent the last 20 years making sure that answer stops working. They built what military planners call anti-access area denial, a mouthful that means something very simple. Keep the other guy's forces so far away they can't do anything useful. Think of a nightclub bouncer, except this bouncer's reach isn't the length of his arm, it's a couple thousand miles. Look at a map of the Western Pacific and you can almost see the wall. The first line runs through Japan, Taiwan, and the Philippines. What planners call the first island chain, just a few hundred miles off China's coast. A second line arcs back through Guam, roughly 3,000 miles out. China has spent 2 decades filling the water between and beyond those lines with enough firepower to make an American commander think twice about sailing into it. Here's how it works. China fields a whole navy of missiles built specifically to kill the thing America leans on most. The DF-21D, nicknamed the Carrier Killer, reaches out about 1,000 miles. Its bigger brother, the DF-26, earned the nickname Guam Killer because it can fly roughly 2,500 miles, far enough to reach America's most important base in the region. Now, I want to be fair and precise here, because we don't deal in hype. Nobody has ever actually hit a moving, dodging, defended aircraft carrier with one of these in combat. It's an assessed threat, not a proven kill. But a threat doesn't have to be proven to change how you behave. You don't need to watch a bear eat somebody to stop walking toward it. And the effect is very real. Those missiles push American carriers back, potentially well over 1,000 miles back, so far that the aircraft on their decks can't even reach the fight. At the same time, China can point thousands of missiles at the fewer than a dozen airfields America can actually operate from out there. One serious study estimated that in the opening weeks of a war, Chinese strikes could keep the runways in Japan and on Guam cratered and shut for the better part of 2 weeks. Then there's the fleet itself. By raw numbers, China now has the largest navy on the planet, more than 320 warships, and adding more every year. Their newest cruiser, the Type 055, outweighs an American cruiser and carries 112 missile silos in its hull. They launch a major destroyer roughly every 3 to 4 months. The largest is a head count here, and in reality, the U.S. Navy still carries more total firepower and tonnage. But if you're an American war planner, it isn't the current score that keeps you awake. It's the direction of the trend line. So here's the trap the Pentagon found itself in. To sink that growing fleet, you had to get close enough to shoot it. And getting close, with a ship, a submarine, or a jet flying from a nearby base, meant getting seen, right inside the range of all those missiles. Every good answer had the same fatal flaw baked right into it. Every answer, that is, except one. There was exactly one aircraft in the entire American inventory that could walk straight through that wall as if it weren't even there. But a plane you can't see is only half the trick. The other half is the missile it carries, which is genuinely one of the strangest weapons America has ever built. On the outside, the LRASM looks unremarkable. A stealthy black wedge with stubby wings, about 14 feet long, no faster than an airliner. Its story starts with a problem. For decades, the Navy's main ship killer was the Harpoon, a missile that entered service in 1977. Older than the internet, older than most of the sailors firing it. Against a modern warship bristling with radar and interceptors, the Harpoon had become a knock on the front door. Everybody heard it coming, and everybody had time to answer. So in 2009, DARPA, the Pentagon's mad science lab, set out to build something that could knock down the front door and take down the entire house. What they ended up with wasn't just a longer-range missile. It was a missile that could think. Here's the part that matters. When a crew launches an LRASM, a human being has already chosen the target, the specific ship or the specific group of ships it is allowed to attack. Now hold on to that because it's important. But from the moment it leaves the aircraft, that missile is on its own. And it's built to survive the nastiest environment imaginable. One where the enemy has jammed the GPS, jammed the radio, and flooded the sky with electronic noise designed to make smart weapons go stupid. Take away its GPS, take away its data link, and the LRASM just shrugs. It finds its way the way an old hunter does when his phone dies and the map's gone, by what it can sense for itself. It carries its own onboard library of enemy ships, and here's the clever part. It hunts with passive senses. It never pings. A normal radar shouts into the dark and listens for the echo, which also tells everyone in the room exactly where you're standing. The LRASM stays silent and just listens. In fact, it can home in on the very radar a warship switches on to protect itself. the ship turns its eyes to spot the incoming threat. And by doing that, it becomes the beacon the missile follows all the way in. In the final stretch, the missile drops to the wave tops, sorts the target it was assigned from every neutral ship and decoy around it, and picks the exact spot on the hull to hit. Not just hit the ship, hit that ship right there. It's a bloodhound handed a single scent and turned loose in a packed arena, deaf to 80,000 people locked onto one. And when it arrives, its 1,000-pound warhead, about the weight of a grand piano, doesn't just blow up on contact. It's designed to punch through the hull first, like a specialized surgical instrument reaching exactly where it needs to go before it triggers. There's one more trick, and it's the one that keeps admirals awake. These missiles can talk to each other. Launch a handful at once, and they share what they see, split the targets up between them, and coordinate the attack so that a single ship can't simply pick them off one at a time. The Navy proved it in testing, sending 4 of them into the sky to hunt as a group. A warship might stop one incoming missile. Stopping 8 that work together as a team is a very different kind of problem. But how well any missile tells a real warship from a clever decoy in the chaos of actual combat is one of the most classified questions in the business. Nobody outside of Vault knows for certain. But the design intent is exactly what I just described, and every Navy on Earth now has to plan as if it works perfectly. And remember those 2 pilots already turning for home? This is why they can. The missile doesn't need them anymore. It finishes the mission alone, which brings us to the truly frightening part. Not the plane, not the missile, but what happens the moment you put the 2 of them together. The B-2 you see here was born in the 1980s for the exact opposite mission. It was built for one nightmare scenario: to slip deep into the Soviet Union, alone, in the dark, and deliver nuclear bombs onto targets that weren't going anywhere. Cities, bunkers, missile silos, things that sit still and wait to be hit. A small, fast, dodging ship in the middle of the ocean was never in the job description. For almost 40 years, this was the land weapon, full stop. Bolting a ship killer like the LRASM into its belly doesn't just add a new tool, it hands a 40-year-old bomber an entirely new career. And it can carry a lot of them. Inside the B-2 sit 2 bomb bays, and each one holds a rotary launcher with 8 stations that you see here. The very same launcher that carries 16 of the LRASM close cousins, a land attack missile called the JSSM. Because the LRASM is built on that same airframe, analysts believe a single B-2 could likely carry as many as 16 of them, a number worth pinning down, honestly. Off Guam, the jet fired exactly 1, and the Air Force has classified the true loadout, but the engineering all points to 16. For perspective, an FA-18 fighter carries up to 4 of these, hung out in the open under its wings. A B-1 bomber can haul 24, but the B-1 lights up a radar screen like a Christmas tree. The B-2 is the only aircraft that can carry a fistful of these missiles and stay completely invisible while doing it. Which brings us to the thing that should genuinely scare a fleet commander. Call it double invisibility. A warship's air defense radar exists to solve one problem: see the threat in time to shoot it down. But the B-2 is built so radar can't see the plane, and the LRASM is built so radar can't see the missile. Picture a destroyer's radar screen in that moment. The Archer never appears, and the Arrow never appears. The bomber slips through the wall unseen, releases from a couple hundred miles out, and is long gone before anyone even knows a shooter was even there. Remember the trap? That every American answer meant getting seen? This is the one answer that breaks it. The B-2 doesn't beat the wall. It ignores the wall entirely. On paper, it reads like checkmate, but there's one problem all that stealth can't solve, and it happens to be the single hardest problem in all of naval warfare. You still can't sink what you can't find. Everything that I've just described only works if you can answer one deceptively simple question: where exactly is the enemy fleet? The Pacific is staggeringly big, millions of square miles of empty water. A warship is a moving speck in all of it, and it does not sit still. A fleet underway can cover 700 miles in a single day. Finding it and then keeping track of it long enough to take the shot is a chain of steps the military calls the kill chain. Find the fleet, fix its position, track it, hand that off to the shooter, and engage. Think of it as a relay race, and the missile is only the anchor leg. Drop the baton at any handoff, lose the satellite, lose the data link, lose the track for 20 minutes, and the whole thing collapses. The missile was never the hard part. Finding the target is the problem the Navy is spending billions of dollars and the rest of this decade trying to fully solve. The LRASM brain helps here, because it can hunt on its own for that final stretch. You don't need a perfect, unbroken track all the way to impact. But something still has to point it at the right patch of ocean to begin with, and that is a genuinely hard job. A satellite passes overhead for only a few minutes at a time. A submarine has to already be in the right place, running silent. A long-range drone like the Navy's Triton can watch the ocean for a full day at a stretch, but it has to survive being that close to an enemy that is actively hunting it. 2. Stitching all of those glimpses into one clear, continuous picture, good enough to launch a bomber halfway across the world with confidence, is the piece the American military is still building. China isn't blind, and it's not helpless. Their Type 055 cruisers carry some of the most powerful radars afloat, backed by long-range surface-to-air missiles that reach well over 100 miles out. They have claimed, loudly, that they fielded radars capable of catching stealth aircraft. Maybe, but those claims are mostly unproven. And even the skeptics admit that catching a full-up stealth bomber like the B-2 remains, in the words of one analyst, a significant challenge. But a smart planner never assumes the invisible plane stays invisible forever. So every one of these missions becomes a race against the clock. The bomber has a narrow window to slip in, launch, and vanish before that window slams shut. And the most unsettling possibility of all, for a Chinese admiral, isn't the missile itself. It's this. Somewhere out past the horizon, his fleet might already be watched, already sitting inside someone's crosshairs, and the first he would ever know of it is the instant the shooting starts. Solve that one targeting problem, and here is what the Pacific actually looks like now. Put every piece on the table at once, and you can finally see the whole machine. It begins not at a base near China, because there are no safe bases near China, but in rural Missouri, half a world away, at the only place on Earth these bombers call home, a single B-2 lifts off and flies for the better part of a day, refueling in midair, crossing an entire ocean. These are the same jets that, a year earlier, flew 36 hours non-stop to Iran and back to drop the first bunker busters ever used in combat. So a one-way trip across the Pacific is comfortably within their reach. The bomber slides through the wall, past the carrier killers, past the Guam killers, past the radar, as though none of it exists. Somewhere a couple hundred miles from a Chinese surface fleet, the bay's open, and this time, there's no target barge waiting. As many as 16 thinking missiles drop into the sky, spread out, and fall to the waves. Working as the team they were built to be, they close on the fleet from several directions at once, faster than any defender can sort them out. For the sailors on those ships, the first warning that a bomber was ever within 1,000 miles is the sight of their own flagship erupting. And here's the twist that turns this from a war game into a genuine headache for Beijing. It isn't hypothetical. The Air Force already proved the shot works 3 weeks ago off Guam, which means every Chinese captain now has to plan around a ghost that might already be overhead, right now, unseen, unheard, and lining up the shot. Step back and look at how far the ledger has swung. In 1945, sinking a single battleship, the Yamato, took the U.S. Navy nearly 400 aircraft, wave after wave, torpedoes and bombs, hours of fighting, and the lives of hundreds of men on both sides. Today, that same job needs one airplane, 2 pilots, and a single missile that cost about $3 million. Launched from so far away, the crew never once lays eyes on the ship they kill. It is, without question, the most expensive way ever devised to deliver someone the worst afternoon of their life from 200 miles out. That collapse, from 400 aircraft down to 1, is the entire story of this weapon in a single sentence. Of course, there's a reason America can't do this 100 times over. Each B-2 costs about $2.1 billion. There are only 19 of them left in the entire world, and the factory that built them shut its doors decades ago. Lose one, and it's gone forever. On top of that, it costs around $150,000 just to keep one in the air for a single hour. These are not the aircraft you gamble with. Every mission is a careful bet with an irreplaceable chip. That is exactly why the torch is already being passed. Its successor, the B-21 Raider, is being built specifically for this specific problem. A newer, cheaper Ghost designed from day one to carry weapons like the LRASM deep into contested skies. The shot off Guam wasn't really a finish line. It was the B-2, quietly writing the playbook that its replacement will inherit. Because in the end, this capability may never sink a single Chinese ship. It doesn't have to. It only has to make one admiral, staring at a screen full of empty ocean, wonder whether the Ghost is already up there, watching, waiting, with the bay doors sliding open. And that quiet, invisible doubt might just be the most powerful weapon of all. Bye for now.